Hello my friends and welcome once again to this Red Gaming Tech video, myself and Marta. Hope you guys are having a good week so far. It is officially Hump Day and of course I am here as always with the latest news from the tech world from the last 24 or so hours as of the 15th of July. Today we're going to begin proceedings with a little bit of something from Micron and DDR5. So this is an official announcement from the very mouths of Micron themselves. They announced a comprehensive DDR5 memory enablement program that will basically give early access to resources, products and ecosystem partners, and is essentially designed to aid in development, design and qualification of next-gen computing platforms that make use of DDR5. So I feel like Micron themselves explained this pretty well. I've got a bit of a statement here from Tom Ebby, the Senior Vice President and General Manager of the Compute and Networking business unit over at Micron. And he said, quote, "Micron has been driving deep technical engagements with the world's largest server and hyperscale companies to keep them better understanding how DDR5 can benefit their unique workloads. We're proud to now extend that collaboration across the entire ecosystem through our technology enablement program to help accelerate time to market for this critical next generation technology." So essentially the goal of this is just them pushing memory adoption of DDR5 obviously in the industry as quickly as possible by making all these resources available to as many people. Obviously we're going to see a more potentially faster uptake of people using the new memory technology. How successful this ends up being, we'll have to wait and see. We're going to move on now to a little something from Intel next. And with this one we say goodbye, we wave goodbye and give a sorrowful, tearful salute to Intel's Skylake X, as Intel has officially discontinued the X series of Skylake, making it officially end of life. Now this isn't going to really kick into high gear until the 22nd of January in 2021, and when that day comes, Intel will no longer take orders for these processors, and after that date, anyone who's ordered them, like distributors, retailers and so on, they won't be able to cancel them or return them. Now obviously it doesn't affect consumers really, other than obviously there's going to be a limited amount left, and once they're gone sort of situation, but obviously it doesn't affect any returns or anything that you're going to have. Now obviously Skylake X never really did amazingly, was not really received all that well, so I'm not really surprised to see this announcement, to be honest, but obviously it is still a big move for Intel to discontinue the product. But we're going to move from Intel to their arch nemesis AMD and something very interesting for Navi. And essentially this one is AMD adding to their long list of weird names for things. You may recall not that long ago we had Sienna Kichlid, or Kishlid, however the hell you pronounce it, and now we have AMD Navy Flounder. Yes, like the fish from Little Mermaid. Anyway, what this actually is AMD is adding more patches to the Linux display drivers. Now the Navy Flounder one is a code name for yet another Navi 2X processor, and it appears to be Navi 22 according to an article on videocards.com. Of course you can find this linked in the description below this video. Now the Navi 22 GPU is expected to debut as a successor to Navi 12, and Navi 12 is a dedicated GPU for Apple Macs. This is a custom variant which features HBM2 memory. Now that probably means it's a reasonable assumption to say that Navi 22 is also going to feature HBM2, since its predecessor also does, but that is a speculation. Oh, and one more thing we can actually take away from the patch notes is that it refers to Navy Flounder GPUs, plural, so it could be a family of graphics cards, but obviously, again, this is just a little bit of speculation from, at the moment, not much information, but still interesting. Next up, however, we have a couple of Nvidia items, the first of which is a rumour regarding the RTX 30 series. Now, I just want to say before I get into this that this report is a little shaky and I am sceptical, but obviously I don't know whether or not it's true for sure. Just keep that in mind as we go into this topic. So we have a rumour from a Chinese tech outlet by the name of FC Power Up And basically what they're stating is that we're actually going to be seeing a brand new 12-pin power connector for the RTX 30 series. Now obviously we are fully expecting the Ampere gaming cards to exceed 300 watts, and to tackle this, according to the report, Nvidia are going to be equipping their reference cards with a new power interface that again has a 12-pin power design. Now obviously this raises several kind of troubling questions because, well, to my knowledge, I'm not aware of any power supply units currently available that actually have a 12-pin power connector. So this would necessitate either PSU upgrade or PSU manufacturers offering replacement cables before Ampere's release, or obviously Nvidia could include a adapter in the box, but that kind of negates the whole point of doing a new power connector if you're just going to be running it through the same thing anyway, but then just converting it to the 12-pin. There is, of course, another possibility that Nvidia is actually using the 12-pin connection internally within the graphics chip itself, to basically offer an interface capable of pulling the necessary power from the standard 6+2 pin connectors. Now obviously this is all rumour and speculation based on a report that in itself is already being machine translated, so obviously do take this with a healthy dose of skepticism, but it would be interesting if this was the case. Speaking of interesting, we also have some alleged rumoured specs for Ampere thanks to Rogamer. So this time around is a tweet from Rogamer from a couple of days ago that I somehow completely missed, but basically it is regarding a GA102 part and the clock speeds for it, and this is one variant that he has found: 1485 MHz base clock and 1740 boost clock, and as Rogamer themselves point out, there's 135 over the base and 195 over the boost over the 2080 Ti, and 135 over the base and 105 over the boost over the 2080 Ti FE. Now I will say that this is not as high as I actually would expect, to be honest, but there's so much we don't know about where these specs have come from. This could be an engineering sample or, some sort of earlier version. Unfortunately, Rogamer wasn't able to provide a source for this information, so it could be outdated, it could be incorrect, it could also be right. I'm just saying that I would expect higher clock speeds than what we're seeing here, but obviously, until Nvidia reveals them, we just don't know what exactly is going to happen. So we've got one more PC gaming related thing to discuss, and then we're going to have a couple of console related items to finish up today's video. But next up we have some very interesting comments from the former Mac boss. Now these comments come from Jean-Louis Gasset, hopefully I pronounced that name correctly, a former Apple executive who led the development of Macs in the late 1980s. So these comments were prompted by Apple's move from Intel to ARM, and he put out a blog post which will be linked in the description below this video alongside everything else that will need a link as always. And basically he thinks this is going to be a domino effect that's going to shake up the PC industry, but I won't put words in his mouth. I will quote to you exactly what he had to say, and again, if you want to read the full post you can find it linked below. So he said, quote, "Microsoft will forge ahead with repercussions for the rest of the PC industry. Specifically, what are Dell, HP, Asus and others going to do if Apple offers materially better laptops and desktops and Microsoft continues to improve Windows on ARM Surface devices? In order to compete, PC manufacturers will have to follow suit. They'll go ARM, because all defensive rhetoric aside, Apple and Microsoft will have made the x86 architecture feel like what it actually is. Old." Now obviously he doesn't mean this is going to happen the instant Apple releases the ARM based machines. Everyone's going to be like, oh, pack up your x86 boys, it's been a good run, but just chuck it all in the lake or whatever, we're done. Obviously that's not going to happen, it's going to be a slow shift over time, but it's still interesting that he believes that this move from Apple is going to be so profound that we would see a shift over to ARM. Now obviously Apple are a huge force in the industry. To say otherwise is just, well, wrong, to be honest, regardless of your personal opinions on their technology. Personally, I'm not a fan of iPhones. I just prefer Android, probably because it's what I'm used to be honest, but regardless of all that, regardless of your personal opinions on them, they are a trendsetter. Like, they removed the headphone jack and all of a sudden it became a pain in the bum to find a phone with a headphone jack, which irritated me to no end, I will say. But so it kind of makes sense that people could see Apple doing this, and if it turns out to be a success for them, we could see people following suit. Whether or not that will happen, I don't know. Obviously, only time will tell, but it would be an unexpected move, to say the least. Anyway, we're going to move over now to something pretty big for the PS5. So this time around, it's a report from both Bloomberg and Nikkei, and of course you can find them linked below. Now, cast your mind back to quite some time ago now. You may remember that Sony was planning to produce between 5 and 6 million units before March 2021. But it seems their plans have changed drastically, at least according to these reports. Apparently, Sony has informed assembly partners and suppliers that they are increasing their orders for the next generation console, and, brace yourselves, are aiming to double their efforts, so they're going to be producing 10 million units this year to meet the increased demand for gaming hardware. Now, this is due to, obviously, the fact that, well, everything in the world right now, a lot of people are at home either because they're working from home or because they've been furloughed or whatever. So obviously more people are gaming at home than ever. Tried to find a Nintendo Switch a couple of months ago was interesting for a lot of people. Myself, I've had one for years, but still, there was Switches going for over the recommended price, which is kind of nuts. Unsurprisingly though, the rumours are also stating that the production for the Dualsense controller will be increased, but that's like the least surprising thing in the universe. It's kind of like saying you'll need an umbrella out because it's raining. Obviously, each console needs a controller and there's going to be spare controllers on sale, blah, blah, blah. So this basically speaks of Sony's confidence that they're just going to be having a extremely high demand. So I think this just speaks of Sony's supreme confidence that they are just going to be seeing a huge demand for the console, much higher than they initially anticipated, of course, when the reports were doing the rounds regarding the 5 to 6 million units before March 2021. Obviously, things have changed a lot since then. But obviously there is a potential wrinkle in this plan because, well, there's still logistics to consider, as Bloomberg themselves highlight. All the consoles are made in China and then sent out via sea, and it could take months for them to reach, Europe, North America, and so on. So if the demand is as high as Sony is expecting, we may still see some supply issues. But I think a lot of this is obviously going to come down to the price. The price has to absolutely be right because, yes, more people are at home than ever at the moment. Whether or not that will still be the case in November or whenever it ends up releasing, time will only tell on that one, obviously. But there's a lot of competition out there. Obviously, there's Microsoft, Xbox Series X, Lockhart, and obviously some people may just not want to upgrade straight away. Maybe they're happy with their current console choice. Maybe they want to wait for some games that they're interested in to release. Maybe they're going to go over to PC, or they're just going to make a different choice this upcoming generation. But still, as I said, I feel this just is a pretty strong show of confidence from Sony that the PS5 is going to go nuts. But whether or not that happens, well, as with a lot of this stuff in this video, time will have to tell, my friends. With that said, though, we're going to move on to our final topic for today, which is some comments from the Godfall director. So this was an interview with GameSpot, which of course you can find linked in the description below this video. And this was the game director Keith Lee, and he spoke on how they're actually going to be using the Dualsense controller to their advantage for the game. Now, he did briefly say that the SSD is going to be used for, quote, faster transfers, and higher graphical performance, but he spoke a lot more about how they're going to use the Dualsense. He said, quote, what's exciting about the Dualsense controller is the fact that it has stereo vibration in terms of the rumblers as well as the resistance on the triggers. So one of the things that you can do is to create, for the first time, a sensation of your weapon hitting another weapon and how it resonates. The fact that if you're sliding across the ground, depending on the surface of the material, you might slide on gravel or sand or water, the way the vibrations work really feel like the way those surfaces would feel. Now, he also went on to add that the new tech is pretty exciting for a game such as their third-person melee combat, where, quote, full awareness of your surroundings is obviously critical. And he went on to say, quote, we can have the clash of weapons, that there could be ways that we could notify the player if an enemy is off screen about to attack you. Obviously, this isn't the first time a developer has been praising the haptic feedback and such for the Dualsense controller, But obviously, it's all going to come down to the test of time, because we've all heard this before. It all feels very familiar, like with the 6-axis and all that sort of stuff. But I'm at least intrigued to see if this actually works out, because I don't mind rumble myself. It really helps you feel that impact when you, I don't know, you pull your bow back in The Last of Us 2 or whatever, and you get that perfect headshot, and you get that little rumble in your controller just to really make you feel the impact even more. So to be used that in a more fine-tuned way, in a more accurate way, and in more subtle ways as well, like he said about the sliding across different materials and stuff like that. I mean, it is a little gimmicky, I suppose, but I still feel like it could be interesting, and it's just like a little background thing to just make the game feel that much more immersive. But whether or not it's actually used well, and we actually see it outside of a few flagship titles and Sony first-party games, obviously only time can answer that question. Time's answering a lot of questions in today's video, but with all that said, that is me done for this video. Thank you so much for watching. As always, your support means a huge deal, and I'll see you next time. Bye-bye.